I held the velvet box in my sweaty palm, rehearsing the words for the 100th time that week. The diamond caught the bedroom light through our thin curtains, throwing tiny rainbows across the wall like promises of a better tomorrow. Lydia Marie Thompson, I whispered to my reflection in the dresser mirror. Will you marry me? The ring had cost me everything. 2 months of double shifts at Coastal Data Recovery, fixing crashed hard drives for panicked small business owners and recovering family photos from dead laptops. Every overtime hour, every weekend spent in my cramped office downtown, all for this moment. 3 years with Lydia. 3 years of shared grocery lists and Netflix arguments and lazy Sunday mornings. 3 years of believing I'd found my person in this little coastal city where nothing exciting ever happened. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tonight felt perfect. Her favorite Pinot Grigio chilling in the kitchen, candles lit throughout the apartment, the whole place smelling like that expensive lavender soap she ordered online because our local drugstore wasn't good enough. Laughter drifted up from the living room below. Lydia and her friends had arrived early for their monthly wine night. Vanessa and Chloe, her college roommates who still acted like they were 22 instead of pushing 30. They always made me feel like an outsider in my own home, but tonight I didn't care. After they left, I'd propose. Start our forever on a Tuesday evening in November in our little apartment above Mrs. Chen's bakery. I tucked the ring back into my sock drawer, behind the rolled-up pears she always complained about me folding wrong. Everything had to be perfect for Lydia. The right wine, the right restaurant, the right words at the right time. I'd learned that lesson early in our relationship. The wooden stairs creaked under my feet as I headed down to say hello and maybe steal a quick kiss before disappearing back upstairs to give them their girl time. "Hey, babe," Lydia called from the couch without looking up from her wine glass. She wore the black dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one that made her eyes look darker. "We're just catching up on everything. You can disappear for a while, right?" Her words hit different tonight. Disappear. Like I was some annoying roommate instead of the guy about to become her husband. But maybe I was overthinking it. Lydia had always been direct. It was one of the things I loved about her. "Sure thing," I said, forcing a smile and leaning down to kiss her cheek. She smelled like wine and that perfume she wore to work. "I'll be upstairs working on the Peterson account. Their server crashed yesterday and they need everything recovered by Friday." "Perfect," Vanessa said, swirling her wine glass with manicured fingers. She worked in marketing for some startup downtown and always made everything sound like a business pitch. "We really need girl time anyway. So much to catch up on." Chloe nodded agreement, already on her second glass despite arriving only 20 minutes ago. She'd been going through a messy divorce and had been leaning on Lydia for support. I understood why they needed space to talk. I climbed the stairs toward my home office, the small spare bedroom where I kept my personal computer and testing equipment. The Peterson job was real. Their crashed server contained 5 years of client data, and they were willing to pay premium rates for weekend recovery. But something made me stop halfway up the staircase. Maybe it was how quickly their conversation resumed the moment I left the room. Maybe it was Vanessa's tone when she said, "girl time," like they'd been waiting for me to leave. Maybe it was just intuition, that little voice that tells you when something's wrong. Their voices carried perfectly through the thin walls of our converted duplex. Mrs. Chen had renovated the building in the 80s, turning the upstairs into a rental apartment, but she hadn't bothered with proper soundproofing. Usually I considered it a flaw. Tonight, it became illuminating. "So when's he finally popping the question?" Chloe asked, her voice slightly slurred from the wine. My heart jumped. I pressed closer to the banister, suddenly very aware of every creaking floorboard. "God, I hope never," Lydia said with a laugh that made my stomach drop to my shoes. The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the wooden rail until my knuckles went white, certain I'd misheard. But her voice carried clearly through the thin walls, each word crisp and unmistakable. "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, and I could hear the surprise in her voice too. "Come on, girls. Be honest. Ethan's sweet and all, but he's basically a placeholder boyfriend. Stable income, pays half the rent, doesn't cheat or leave dirty dishes in the sink. He's like training wheels for real relationships." The wine glass clinked against the coffee table below. I heard Chloe's sharp intake of breath. "Lydia, that's harsh," she said, but there was laughter in her voice too. "Even for you." "It's honest," Lydia continued, her tone casual as if she was discussing the weather. "I mean, seriously, look at him. Data recovery technician? He fixes broken computers for a living. Where's the ambition? Where's the fire? I need someone who makes power moves, not someone who waits for permission to breathe." My chest felt tight. 3 years of believing I was building something real, and she saw me as a convenience. A utility boyfriend who kept the lights on while she figured out her actual life. "So why stay with him?" Vanessa asked the question I was terrified to hear answered. "Because stable guys make perfect boyfriends while you figure out what you actually want. He's predictable, safe. Boring as hell, but safe, and he worships the ground I walk on, which is honestly pretty addictive." All 3 women burst into laughter at that, the sound carrying up through the floorboards like mockery. "Plus," Lydia continued when the laughter died down, "he's got this puppy dog devotion thing that's actually kind of sweet. Do you know how nice it is having someone who thinks you're absolutely perfect? He'd probably propose with some tiny ring he saved up for months to buy, all proud of himself for making such a grand gesture." More laughter, louder this time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone with trembling fingers, the same device I used for work, equipped with professional-grade recording software for documenting data recovery procedures and client conversations. Insurance companies required audio logs for high-value recovery jobs. My thumb found the record button and pressed it just as Chloe spoke again. "Poor guy has no idea what you really think," she said. "None whatsoever," Lydia agreed. "He probably thinks we're up here discussing wedding colors or baby names or something equally domestic. He's so naive it's almost endearing." "What about Cole, though?" Vanessa asked, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Are you going to tell Ethan about him?" My blood turned to ice. Cole. Who the hell was Cole? "Are you insane?" Lydia hissed. "Why would I ruin a good thing? Cole's exciting, but he's not exactly relationship material, more like a really good distraction." "A distraction from what?" Chloe pressed. "From this." Lydia's voice swept around the room. "From boring Tuesday nights and Netflix marathons and conversations about computer repairs. Cole makes me feel alive again, makes me remember what it's like to want something instead of just settling for what's convenient." The recording app showed 47 seconds and counting. 47 seconds of my life crashing down around me. 3 years reduced to training wheels and placeholders and convenient arrangements. "You're playing with fire," Vanessa warned. "If Ethan finds out, he won't. He's too trusting, too focused on his little computer world to notice what's happening in the real one. Besides, what's he going to do? He needs me more than I need him." I stopped the recording. My hand shook as I stared at the phone screen, at the audio file that contained the complete destruction of everything I thought I knew about my life. The ring box upstairs in my sock drawer suddenly felt like evidence of my own stupidity. 2 months of overtime. 2 months of skipping lunch and taking extra jobs and planning the perfect proposal. All for a woman who saw me as a temporary convenience. My legs felt like concrete as I walked back down the stairs, each step deliberate and measured. The conversation below continued, but the words blurred together into white noise. I heard my name mentioned a few more times, always followed by laughter. The ring box sat in my drawer where I'd left it, mocking me with its stupid little hope. I grabbed it and walked straight back downstairs, my heart pounding, but my mind crystal clear. The conversation stopped abruptly when I appeared in the living room doorway. 3 guilty faces turned toward me, wine glasses frozen halfway to lips. "Hey, babe," Lydia said, suddenly bright and cheerful like an actress switching into character. "Done with work already? That was fast." I held up my phone, finger hovering over the play button. "Actually, I was working on testing some new recording equipment. The audio quality's gotten really impressive lately. Want to hear?" Her face went curious, then confused, then pale as recognition dawned. "What do you mean?" she asked, but her voice had lost its casual confidence. I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room, crystal clear and unmistakable. "God, I hope never. Come on, girls, be honest. Ethan's sweet and all, but he's basically a placeholder boyfriend." Vanessa's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor, red wine spreading like blood across the boards. Chloe's mouth fell open in a perfect O of shock. Lydia stared at me like I'd materialized from thin air. I let the whole thing play. Every word, every laugh, every casual dismissal of 3 years together. When it reached the part about Cole, I watched Lydia's face cycle through denial, panic, and resignation. When the recording ended, the silence stretched between us like a chasm. I set the ring box on the coffee table between us, right next to the spreading wine stain. "You're right about one thing," I said, my voice calmer than I felt inside. "The ring is small, 2 months of overtime and weekend jobs to afford it. Thank God I kept the receipt." Lydia stood up quickly, reaching toward me with desperate hands. "Ethan, wait. You don't understand the context." "I understand perfectly." I picked up the ring box and slipped it back into my pocket. "You needed training wheels while you figured out your real life. I was convenient, stable, boring but safe." "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that. You said it yourself. Multiple times, in great detail." Vanessa and Chloe sat frozen on the couch, watching our relationship implode like spectators at a car crash. "But here's the thing about placeholders, Lydia," I continued, heading toward the door where my keys hung on their usual hook. "We're temporary by design, and my assignment just ended." "Where are you going?" she called after me, her voice cracking with something that might have been genuine emotion. I paused at the door and looked back at her one final time. Still beautiful. Still the woman I'd planned to spend forever with 90 minutes ago. Now she felt like a stranger wearing my girlfriend's face. To find someone who doesn't need training wheels. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click, cutting off whatever she said next. I drove around the coastal highway for 2 hours, letting the anger settle into something colder and more useful. The November air was sharp and clean, carrying the salt smell of the ocean and the promise of winter storms. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from Lydia, but I let them go to voicemail. Whatever she had to say now, I wasn't ready to hear it. Maybe I never would be. The seaside motel wasn't much to look at, a strip of rooms facing the parking lot with a neon sign that flickered between vacancy and va-en-ci, but it was clean, and it was mine. The clerk, a kid with multiple piercings who looked like he'd seen plenty of relationship drama, took my credit card without questions. When I got back to the apartment around midnight, Vanessa's car was gone, but I could see lights still on upstairs. Lydia sat on the couch where I'd left her, makeup streaked, holding her phone like a lifeline. "We need to talk," she said as soon as I walked in. "We really don't. Ethan, please. What you heard tonight, that wasn't the real me talking. That was just girl talk. You know how women get when we're together, especially with wine involved." I walked past her to grab a beer from the fridge and found myself really looking at our kitchen for the first time in months. Her expensive coffee maker that I'd bought for her birthday. The spice rack she'd organized but never used because she preferred takeout. The refrigerator covered with photos of us at various restaurants and events, smiling like we had a future together. "So the real you shows up when you're lying to my face?" I asked, twisting the cap off my beer. Interesting theory. I wasn't lying. I do love you. You love having me around, that's different. She followed me into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the tile floor. Don't do this. Don't throw away 3 years over some stupid drunken comments. I turned to face her, really studying her features like I was trying to memorize them. The small scar on her chin from a childhood accident. The way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous. The green eyes that had first caught my attention at a coffee shop downtown 3 years ago. Tell me something, Lydia. When you pictured your wedding day, was I the groom? She hesitated. Just for a second, but it might as well have been a century. Of course you were. That pause says otherwise. Ethan, it's fine, really. You clarified things perfectly tonight. I actually appreciate the honesty, even if it was accidental. I grabbed a suitcase from the hall closet and started packing methodically. 3 years of shared life reduced to 2 bags and a box of computer equipment. Amazing how little space a life actually takes up when you strip away the illusions. You can't just leave, she said from the bedroom doorway, watching me fold shirts and roll socks with military precision. Watch me. But the lease is in both our names, the utilities, the Netflix account. We have shared everything. I paused in my packing and looked at her seriously. Actually, check the paperwork again. The lease is in your name only. I just help with rent because you said it would be easier that way. Remember? Her face went pale as she realized the truth of it. I'd offered to add my name to the lease multiple times, but she'd always had excuses. Too much paperwork, not worth the hassle. Her credit was better anyway. Now I understood the real reason. Keeping me off the lease made it easier to get rid of me when something better came along. But where will you go? She asked, her voice smaller now. That's not really your problem anymore, is it? I zipped the suitcase closed and headed for the door with my computer equipment box under my arm. Ethan, wait. I stopped and looked back. This is crazy. You're throwing away everything we built together. I almost laughed at that. We didn't build anything, Lydia. You built a comfortable temporary arrangement while you waited for something better. I built a fantasy based on lies. So that's it? 3 years mean nothing to you? They meant everything to me. That's the problem. I left her standing in our bedroom, surrounded by the life I thought we'd shared, the photos on the nightstand, the books I'd bought for her that she'd never read, the future I'd imagined that had never been real. The motel room smelled like disinfectant and industrial carpet cleaner, but it was honest about what it was. No pretense, no hidden meanings, just a bed, a bathroom, and cable television. I opened my laptop and started organizing my thoughts. The Peterson job could wait until morning. Tonight, I had more important work to do. My phone showed 5 missed calls from Lydia and 3 voicemails I wasn't ready to listen to. But there was also a notification from an unknown number, a text message that had arrived while I was driving. Hey, gorgeous. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. Your place at 7 tomorrow night? Cole. Wrong number. Had to be. But the timestamp showed it had been sent during Lydia's wine night with the girls. I screenshot the message and started a new folder on my laptop. Lydia Thompson, evidence collection. Training wheels, she'd called me. Time to see how she handled riding without them. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that made the coastal city look like a noir film. Perfect mood for detective work. My office at Coastal Data Recovery sat on Harbor Street between a used bookstore and a shop that sold handmade soap to tourists. Small but efficient. 2 workstations, walls lined with hard drives in various stages of resurrection, and a coffee maker that had learned my schedule better than most humans. I'd been running the business for 5 years, ever since graduating with my computer science degree from the State University 40 minutes inland. Most people thought data recovery was boring work, endless hours staring at code, coaxing information from damaged storage devices, rebuilding corrupted file systems. They were wrong. Data recovery was archaeology, Every crashed drive told a story, and I was good at reading between the lines. The Peterson job sat on my primary workstation, a server that had suffered a catastrophic failure during a power outage. 5 years of client data, accounting records, and irreplaceable business documents trapped inside damaged storage arrays. The kind of job that required patience, precision, and the ability to see patterns others missed. Exactly the skills I needed for my personal investigation. Mrs. Patterson arrived at 9 with her crashed laptop and a story about lost family photos from her daughter's wedding. Standard residential job, the kind that paid the bills and reminded me why I loved this work. "How long will this take?" she asked, setting the laptop carefully on my desk like it contained precious artifacts. 2 to 3 days, depending on the extent of the damage. Most family photos cluster in predictable locations on the hard drive. If you know where to look, they're usually recoverable. She smiled with relief and left me alone with her wounded laptop and my thoughts. I was 3 hours into the Patterson recovery when my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Looking forward to tonight, beautiful. I've been thinking about you all morning. Can't wait to get my hands on you again. Cole." Another wrong number. Or was it? I added the message to my evidence folder and kept working, but my mind was elsewhere. The timestamp on this message put it right in the middle of Lydia's workday at Morrison & Associates, the PR firm where she handled social media campaigns for local businesses. Around lunch, my phone rang with a call I'd been expecting. "Ethan?" Lydia's voice sounded tired and strained. "We need to talk about practical things. The apartment, the bills, our stuff. What about them? The rent's due Monday and I can't cover it alone. Plus, there's the electric bill, the internet, the car insurance we split. Sounds like a you problem now. Don't be like this. I know you're hurt, but we still have to handle adult responsibilities." I set down my coffee cup and leaned back in my chair, staring at the wall of recovered hard drives. Each one represented someone's digital life rebuilt after catastrophe. "You're right. We should handle things like adults. How long have you been seeing Cole?" Dead silence on her end. Long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cole Morrison, about 6'2", drives a black BMW, works in marketing, has trouble sending text messages to the right phone number." More silence. "That's work stuff, Ethan. Cole's a client." "Is he?" "Because he seems awfully familiar for a client. Sending messages about weekend getaways and getting his hands on you again." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "How did you—" "Never mind. It doesn't matter. There's nothing inappropriate going on." "I believe you," I said, which was completely true. I believed she was lying through her teeth. Absolutely nothing inappropriate about a married client intimate texting his PR representative. "He's not— Wait, how do you know he's married?" "Lucky guess. Or maybe I'm better at research than you gave me credit for." The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. "Look," she said finally, "maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe we both said things we didn't mean. Can we please just focus on fixing this mess? Tell you what, come by my office tomorrow around 4. We'll discuss terms for moving forward." "Terms for what?" "For ending this cleanly. You wanted honesty? I'll give you all the honesty you can handle." "Okay, I'll be there at 4. After she hung up, I spent the afternoon finishing Mrs. Patterson's photo recovery and planning my conversation with Lydia. Some problems required delicate surgical techniques. Others needed direct pressure applied at precisely the right points. This situation called for both. I opened a new browser window and started researching Cole Morrison. Social media profiles, business registrations, property records, all the digital breadcrumbs people leave behind without realizing it. By closing time, I had a complete profile of Cole Morrison, marketing director at Pinnacle Creative Solutions, married to Jennifer Morrison, née Blackstone, father of 2 young children, owner of a house in the hills with a mortgage that suggested his marketing salary was supplemented by family money that came from his wife's father, Richard Blackstone, venture capitalist and primary investor in several local tech startups, including Clearview Solutions, my biggest client. The web was getting more interesting by the hour. Friday afternoon, Lydia knocked on my office door wearing her best apologetic expression and a dress I'd never seen before. Charcoal gray, expensive looking, the kind of outfit that cost more than most people's weekly salary. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. "Nice dress," I said, letting her into my office. "New?" "Thanks. I picked it up for a client presentation this morning." Cole must be a very important client to warrant that kind of investment. She froze halfway to the chair, her professional smile faltering for just a moment. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing specific. Just making conversation about your expanding wardrobe." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same chair where nervous clients usually sat while I explained how much it would cost to recover their digital lives. She settled into it carefully, crossing her legs and trying to project confidence despite the tension radiating from every muscle. The afternoon sunlight streaming through my window caught the highlights in her hair, reminding me of all the mornings I'd watched her get ready for work, thinking myself lucky to share a life with someone so beautiful. Now I wondered how many of those careful grooming sessions had been for Cole's benefit instead of mine. "So," she said, her voice artificially bright, "you mentioned terms for moving forward?" "Right. Terms." I opened my laptop and pulled up a document I'd prepared that morning. I've been thinking about this situation logically, trying to find a solution that works for everyone involved. That sounds reasonable. Here's what I'm proposing. Clean break, minimal drama, everyone walks away with their dignity intact. She nodded eagerly. "I think that's exactly what we need. But first, I need a favor from you." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of favor?" I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a small USB drive, the kind I used for client data backups. Standard 32GB storage device, completely ordinary except for the custom software I'd loaded onto it. "I need you to copy some personal files for me. Photos, documents, that sort of thing. Stuff I left on your laptop over the past few months. Can't you just come get them yourself?" "I'd rather not. Too many memories in that apartment. Too much emotional baggage. This way is cleaner for both of us." She stared at the USB drive like it might explode in her hand. "What files exactly?" "Nothing dramatic, just personal stuff. Digital photos from trips we took together, some documents I worked on at home, maybe some music I downloaded. My digital life from the past 3 years." That part was technically true. The USB drive would copy files, just not only the ones she expected it to copy. "Fine," she said after a moment's hesitation, slipping the drive into her purse. "Anything else?" "That's it. Once you copy those files, we're even. Clean slate for both of us. You can move on with Cole, and I can figure out what comes next." She stood up smoothly, but I caught the slight tremor in her hands as she adjusted her purse strap. "And then you'll stop being weird about my work relationships?" "I was never being weird about your work relationships. I was being weird about discovering my girlfriend was cheating on me. Different problem entirely." "I'm not cheating." "Of course not. You're networking, building professional relationships, engaging in client services that happen to involve weekend getaways and intimate text messages." Her face flushed red, but she headed for the door without another word. "Lydia?" I called after her. She turned back, hope flickering in her green eyes. "Be careful with that USB drive. It contains some pretty sophisticated backup software. Wouldn't want it corrupting any important files on your computer." The hope died instantly, replaced by suspicion. But she was already committed to the plan, and backing out now would look like an admission of guilt. After she left, I opened the monitoring software on my computer and watched the USB drive's status indicator change from disconnected to initializing to active. The beauty of custom backup software is that it's incredibly thorough. Most people think backing up files means copying documents and photos, Professional backup software digs much deeper. Email archives, browser histories, cached social media conversations, automatically saved drafts of documents, even temporary files that users think they've deleted. Everything leaves traces in a computer's memory. My job was knowing where to look for them. The USB drive would copy exactly what I'd promised: personal files from our shared time together. It would also create a complete forensic image of her entire digital life, organized and indexed for easy analysis. Completely legal, since she'd volunteered to copy my files using my equipment. If she happened to copy more than she intended, well, that was a consequence of using unfamiliar software. Technology is a beautiful thing when you understand how it really works. I spent the rest of the afternoon finishing Mrs. Patterson's photo recovery and preparing for whatever Lydia's digital life was about to reveal. By closing time, I had her wedding photos restored and burning to a DVD, and my investigation toolkit ready for whatever came next. Some stories can only be told through the data people leave behind. The USB drive completed its work Friday night at 11:47 p.m., according to my monitoring logs. By Saturday morning, I had a complete digital mirror of Lydia's laptop sitting on my secure server, organized into neat folders and ready for analysis. I made strong coffee and settled in for a long morning of detective work. Most of her files were exactly what you'd expect from a PR professional: client presentations, social media content calendars, press releases for local restaurants and boutique shops. Boring but necessary work that paid the bills in a small coastal city where marketing budgets were modest and creativity had to stretch every dollar. But buried in the routine business files, I found the folder that changed everything. Personal projects, private. Inside were dozens of subfolders with names like coal, weekend plans, new apartment research, and most interestingly, business opportunity, confidential. I opened the weekend plans folder first and nearly choked on my coffee. The documents outlined a complete romantic getaway to Napa Valley, scheduled for the upcoming weekend. Hotel reservations at a luxury resort, dinner bookings at restaurants that charged more for one meal than I made in a week, wine tasting appointments at exclusive vineyards that required reservations months in advance. All paid for by C. Morrison, Pinnacle Creative Solutions. But the receipts told a more interesting story. The hotel reservation was for a king suite booked under the name Mr. and Mrs. C. Morrison. The dinner reservations were for two. The wine tastings were described as romantic couples experiences. Cole Morrison wasn't just taking a client on a business trip, he was taking his mistress on a romantic weekend using his wife's credit cards. I opened the business opportunity folder and found something even more damaging: a detailed business plan titled Mobile Recover Pro, Competitive Analysis and Market Entry Strategy. My blood pressure spiked as I read the executive summary. The document proposed developing a mobile data recovery application to compete directly with enterprise solutions currently dominating the market. It identified key weaknesses in existing software, outlined technical approaches for creating superior algorithms, and projected revenue streams based on subscription models and corporate licensing. It was brilliant, thorough, and completely based on my work for Clearview Solutions. I scrolled through page after page of technical specifications that looked suspiciously familiar. Algorithm descriptions I'd written, interface designs I'd prototyped, even specific code samples that I recognized from my own development notes. But the most damaging section was titled Technical Resources and Development Timeline. It detailed exactly how they planned to acquire the necessary expertise to build their competing product. Primary technical consultant currently engaged in similar development for competing firm. Extensive access to development environment, source code, and proprietary algorithms through personal relationship. Recommended approach: gradual acquisition of technical assets through informal consultation and documentation review. They weren't just planning to steal my work. They'd been doing it systematically for months. I opened another subfolder labeled E-Cross, Technical Documentation, and found screenshots of my home computer screen, photos of my development notebooks, copies of source code files with timestamps showing they'd been accessed during evenings and weekends when I was supposedly working late at the office. Every time I'd brought work home, every time I'd left my laptop open while making dinner or taking a phone call, Lydia had been documenting my projects for Cole's business plan. 3 years of trust, reduced to industrial espionage, and weekend getaways in wine country. My phone buzzed with a text message. Files copied successfully. USB drive is on your desk at the apartment. We're even now, right? Hope this helps with your closure. L. I typed back. Absolutely. Thanks for being so thorough with the backup process. Then I opened a new document on my computer and started taking detailed notes. If Lydia and Cole wanted to play games with my intellectual property, they were about to learn why data recovery specialists are very good at finding things people thought they'd lost forever, including evidence of their own crimes. Sunday morning brought revelations that transformed my personal crisis into something much more complex. Cole Morrison wasn't just some marketing director having an affair. He was the son-in-law of Richard Blackstone, the venture capitalist who'd invested $2 million in Clearview Solutions 6 months ago. The same Clearview Solutions where I worked as lead developer on the Mobile Recover Pro project. The same project that Lydia and Cole were planning to steal and reproduce under their own company. I spent the morning cross-referencing business filings, corporate records, and social media profiles, building a complete picture of the conspiracy I'd stumbled into. Pinnacle Creative Solutions had been struggling for months. Their biggest client, a regional restaurant chain, had pulled their account in February after a social media campaign backfired spectacularly. Without that anchor client, Pinnacle was hemorrhaging money and scrambling for new revenue streams. Cole Morrison, as marketing director, was under pressure to deliver results or face downsizing. His salary alone wouldn't maintain the lifestyle his wife's family money had made possible. The house in the hills, the luxury cars, the exclusive country club membership. But Cole had discovered something interesting during his affair with Lydia. His mistress's boyfriend was developing exactly the kind of innovative technology that could save Pinnacle's financial situation. The business plan I'd found detailed their complete strategy. Phase 1. Acquire technical specifications through Lydia's access to my work environment. Phase 2. Develop competing product using stolen algorithms and designs. Phase 3. Launch Mobile Recover Pro under Pinnacle's brand using Cole's family connections to secure funding and corporate clients. Phase 4. Reveal that Clearview's lead developer had been compromised, destroying their credibility and clearing the market for Pinnacle's original innovation. It was elegant, ruthless, and almost foolproof. Almost. They'd made one critical miscalculation. They assumed I was as naive about business as I'd been about relationships. They thought a small-town computer repair guy wouldn't notice his work being stolen or wouldn't know how to fight back if he did. They were about to discover how wrong they were. I called David Kim, Clearview's CEO, and scheduled an emergency meeting for Monday morning. David was a former Silicon Valley executive who'd moved to our coastal city for the slower pace of life, but he still understood corporate warfare better than anyone. Then, I started preparing a presentation that would turn Cole and Lydia's plan into their own destruction. Sometimes the best defense is letting your enemies defeat themselves with their own overconfidence. Monday morning, I walked into Clearview's conference room with my laptop bag and a strategy that would either save my career or destroy it completely. David Kim looked concerned as I spread printouts across the polished table. "Ethan, your message said this was urgent. What's going on?" "Someone's been stealing our intellectual property," I said, opening my laptop. "I have complete documentation of the theft, including business plans for competing products and evidence of systematic espionage." I walked him through everything methodically. The USB drive that had revealed Lydia's involvement, the copied files and screenshots of my work, The business plan that detailed exactly how they intended to destroy Clearview while profiting from our innovation. David's expression evolved from concern to anger to cold calculation as he absorbed the implications. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "Based on the file timestamps, at least 4 months, possibly longer." "And you're certain about the family connection to our investor?" "Richard Blackstone is Cole Morrison's father-in-law. Jennifer Morrison is Blackstone's daughter. Cole has been using Pinnacle's resources to develop a competing product using our proprietary algorithms." David leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, thinking like the corporate strategist he'd been before moving to our quiet coastal city. "How do you want to handle this?" he asked finally. "Very carefully. They're planning to make their move at Pinnacle's client showcase next Friday. Big presentation, lots of potential investors, including Blackstone himself. So we stop them. Better than that, we let them hang themselves publicly." I outlined my plan. David listened without interruption, asking sharp questions and identifying potential problems with the surgical precision of someone who'd navigated corporate politics in much more dangerous environments. "That's either brilliant or completely insane," he said when I finished. "Hopefully both." We spent the next 2 hours refining details and preparing contingencies. By lunch, we had a strategy that would expose Cole and Lydia's scheme while protecting Clearview's legitimate interests and turning their planned presentation into a public confession. "You realize this could backfire spectacularly," David warned as we finalized our approach. "It could," I agreed, "but doing nothing guarantees they destroy us. This way, we control the narrative." "And your personal situation with Lydia?" "That's separate. This is about protecting our work and our company. Personal revenge is just a bonus." David smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. "Then let's give them a presentation they'll never forget." Tuesday and Wednesday passed in careful preparation. David coordinated with our legal team while I refined the technical aspects of our counterattack. By Thursday evening, everything was in place. The beauty of our plan lay in its simplicity. We were going to let Cole and Lydia deliver their presentation exactly as planned, then provide some additional context that would clarify where their innovations had actually originated. Thursday evening, I received a text from the now familiar unknown number. "Tomorrow changes everything, gorgeous. After this presentation, we'll have enough funding to disappear together. Can't wait to start our real life." C. Another misdirected message. Cole really needed to check his contact list more carefully. I forwarded it to my evidence folder and called David with the final confirmation we'd been waiting for. "They're definitely moving forward with the presentation," I told him. "Cole just confirmed they're planning to use the funding to disappear together." "Perfect. That gives us motive along with means and opportunity. How's your presentation looking?" "Ready to go. All the evidence organized, timeline documented, comparative analysis complete. When they finish their pitch, we'll provide some additional technical context that should clarify things for the investors." "And the streaming setup?" "Live feed goes out to all major industry blogs and social media accounts simultaneously. Whatever happens tomorrow gets seen by everyone who matters in our sector." Public humiliation required a public audience. Cole and Lydia had chosen their stage. We were simply ensuring it had the right lighting. I spent the evening doing something I hadn't done in weeks. I actually relaxed, ordered pizza from Tony's, watched a mindless action movie, and enjoyed the calm before the storm. Around midnight, my phone rang with a call from Lydia. "Hey," she said, her voice soft and uncertain, in a way I hadn't heard since our early dating days. "I wanted to call before tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" "You know what's tomorrow. The Pinnacle Showcase, Cole's big presentation. I just wanted you to know that whatever happens, I never meant for things to end this badly between us." "What way is that exactly?" "With you hating me. With everything being so bitter and complicated." I considered my response carefully, staring at the evidence files scattered across my coffee table. "I don't hate you, Lydia. I'm disappointed that you thought so little of me. Disappointed that you saw 3 years as a convenient arrangement instead of a real relationship. But I don't hate you. I don't think little of you. You called me a placeholder. You stole my work for your boyfriend's business plan. You planned to destroy my career to advance his. If that's not thinking little of someone, I'm not sure what would qualify. Silence stretched between us across the phone lines. How did you figure it out? She asked finally. I'm good at recovering things people think they've deleted permanently. It's literally my profession. More silence. Ethan, listen. Whatever you think you know about tomorrow, I know everything. The business plan, the stolen algorithms, the family connections, the weekend getaways paid for with his wife's money. I know about the whole operation. I could hear her breathing quicken. What are you going to do? Tomorrow, I'm going to attend a presentation about innovative data recovery technology. Should be very educational. I can't what? Attend a public technology showcase? Seems like exactly the kind of event someone in my field should support. Please don't do this. Do what? I haven't done anything yet, but tomorrow's your last chance to make things right before other people get involved. I hung up before she could respond and turned off my phone. Some conversations are better left unfinished, especially when the real discussion is scheduled for the next day. Friday morning arrived clear and crisp, perfect weather for watching carefully laid plans collapse in spectacular fashion. The Pinnacle Marketing Showcase was held at the Harbor Convention Center, a sleek glass building that overlooked the marina where expensive boats bobbed in the morning sun. I arrived an hour early and found my seat in the back row, baseball cap pulled low, looking like any other industry professional interested in the latest technology trends. The room filled quickly with exactly the audience Cole and Lydia needed. Marketing executives from regional companies, potential investors looking for the next breakthrough technology, tech bloggers hunting for interesting stories, and industry analysts whose recommendations could make or break a product launch. Perfect witnesses for what was about to unfold. At 10 sharp, Cole Morrison took the stage looking every inch the polished marketing executive. Expensive suit, confident posture, the kind of practiced smile that sells products to people who don't understand what they're buying. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the room's sound system. Today, Pinnacle Creative Solutions is proud to introduce a revolutionary advancement in mobile data recovery technology. The audience applauded politely as professional slides appeared on the large screens flanking the stage. Mobile Recover Pro represents 18 months of intensive development and innovation, Cole continued, launching into a presentation that I had to admit was impressively professional. For 20 minutes, I watched him present my work as his company's breakthrough innovation. He'd changed the interface colors and renamed a few functions, but the core algorithms were unmistakably mine. A year of late nights and weekend coding sessions, rebranded and repackaged for someone else's profit. He was good. I had to give him that. Confident delivery, compelling demonstrations, the kind of polished pitch that makes investors reach for their checkbooks. Lydia sat in the front row, wearing a different, expensive dress and beaming with pride as Cole explained features I'd designed to solve problems he'd probably never encountered. The technical specifications are truly groundbreaking, Cole said, advancing to a slide that showed system architecture diagrams I recognized from my own development notes. Our proprietary algorithms achieve recovery rates significantly higher than existing solutions while maintaining enterprise-level security protocols. More applause from an audience that was clearly impressed by the technical sophistication on display. And now, Cole continued with a practiced smile, let me introduce our head of client relations, Lydia Thompson, who will demonstrate the practical applications of this revolutionary technology. Lydia stood gracefully and walked to the presentation podium, connecting her laptop to the projection system with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this moment dozens of times. That's when David Kim's carefully coordinated plan went into action. Instead of Lydia's prepared demonstration slides, the screens filled with a different presentation entirely. Mobile Recover Pro, the truth about stolen innovation. Lydia stared at the screen in complete confusion, clicking frantically on her laptop trackpad as the first slide advanced automatically through our remote access software. Slide 1, Original Source Code and its Actual Developer. The screen split to show my source code side by side with Cole's revolutionary algorithms. Identical functions with identical variable names. Identical comments, including the sarcastic notes I'd left for myself during late-night debugging sessions. Even identical typing errors that I'd never bothered to correct because they didn't affect functionality. The audience began murmuring as the implications became clear. Slide 2. Evidence of systematic industrial espionage. Screenshots from Lydia's laptop filled the screen. The business plan documents, email conversations between her and Cole discussing which aspects of my work would be most valuable for their competing product. Photos she'd taken of my computer screen during evenings when I thought we were spending quality time together. Cole rushed toward the podium, trying to stop the presentation, but our software had taken complete control of the projection system. Slide 3. Family connections and conflict of interest. A detailed organizational chart appeared, showing Cole's marriage to Jennifer Blackstone Morrison, her father's venture capital firm, and his $2 million investment in Clearview Solutions, the legitimate owner of the technology Cole had just presented as his own innovation. The room erupted in shocked whispers and urgent phone conversations as reporters and industry analysts realized they were witnessing a public confession of corporate espionage. Slide 4. Timeline of deception and personal betrayal. A chronological breakdown of events, from Lydia's first contact with Cole through their romantic relationship development and systematic theft of proprietary technology, complete with dates, locations, and supporting documentation including hotel receipts and text message screenshots. By now, phones were everywhere as people recorded and live tweeted the presentation. Cole had abandoned his attempt to control the slideshow and was arguing with security personnel who looked confused about whether to stop the presentation or arrest the presenters. Lydia stood frozen at the podium, watching 3 months of careful planning collapse in real time. Slide 5. Legal implications of technology theft. Federal copyright statutes appeared on screen alongside corporate espionage laws and their associated penalties. Criminal charges, civil damages, professional licensing consequences, the kind of information that makes investors nervous and lawyers excited. Slide 6. Comparison of stolen versus original technology. A live demonstration of Clearview's actual Mobile Recover Pro running on my development device, showing significantly superior performance compared to Cole's incomplete understanding of the algorithms he'd attempted to steal. The final slide appeared with devastating simplicity. Questions? The room exploded into chaos. Reporters shouting questions, investors demanding explanations, security moving toward the stage as Cole and Lydia attempted to escape through the side exit. I stood up and walked calmly toward the front of the room, removing my baseball cap as I approached the microphone. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the commotion, "I might be able to answer some questions about the technology you just saw presented." Lydia spotted me approaching, and her face went completely white. "You," she whispered into the microphone, her voice amplified across the stunned room. "Me," I confirmed, taking the microphone from her trembling hands. "Ethan Cross, lead developer for Clearview Solutions and original creator of the algorithms you just watched being presented as someone else's innovation." The convention center buzzed with energy as reporters gathered around me, cameras rolling, phones recording every word of what was rapidly becoming the technology scandal of the year. "Can you explain how you discovered the theft of your intellectual property?" asked a woman from Tech News Pacific, her microphone thrust toward my face. "Standard data recovery techniques," I replied, keeping my voice calm and professional. When someone steals your work, they leave digital fingerprints throughout their computer systems. My job involves finding information people think they've permanently deleted or hidden. What's your response to accusations that you're simply a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage a legitimate business venture? Called out someone from the back of the crowd. I smiled and pulled out my phone, opening the audio file I'd recorded that Tuesday night 3 weeks ago. Let me provide some context for my relationship with Ms. Thompson, I said, pressing play. Lydia's voice filled the room through the convention center's sound system, crystal clear and utterly damning. Ethan's sweet and all, but he's basically a placeholder boyfriend. Stable income, pays half the rent, doesn't cheat. He's like training wheels for real relationships. The crowd went completely silent as the recording continued, documenting her casual dismissal of our 3-year relationship and her plans to use my work for Cole's business advancement. This audio was recorded in my own living room 3 weeks ago, I continued when the playback ended. While I was upstairs preparing to propose marriage, my girlfriend was explaining to her friends how I was merely a convenient placeholder while she pursued more exciting opportunities. Sympathetic murmurs rippled through the audience, but I wasn't finished. 2 days after recording that conversation, I discovered she'd been systematically photographing my work computer, copying proprietary source code, and providing detailed technical documentation to Mr. Morrison for use in developing a competing product. More questions flew at me from the crowd of reporters and industry analysts, but I kept my responses factual and professional. Let the evidence speak for itself. What were your intentions in disrupting today's presentation? Asked a blogger from Innovation Weekly. My intention was to protect the intellectual property rights of my employer and ensure that stolen technology wasn't fraudulently presented as original innovation to potential investors. Are you seeking personal revenge against Ms. Thompson for your relationship issues? I looked directly at Lydia, who stood trapped near the stage by the crowd of reporters and security personnel trying to maintain order. This isn't about personal revenge, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. This is about professional integrity and protecting the legitimate work of innovative companies against corporate espionage. I paused, letting the implications settle across the audience. However, I continued, I did learn something valuable about the difference between personal worth and professional value. Ms. Thompson taught me that some people view relationships as temporary conveniences while they pursue their real objectives. Lydia's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no satisfaction in her distress. Just a clean sense of justice served and truth revealed. So, I decided to demonstrate the same principle in reverse. I showed her exactly how much her deception was worth when exposed to professional scrutiny. A reporter from Business Journal shouted above the crowd, "What happens next for the individuals involved in this situation?" "That's not for me to determine," I replied. "Clearview Solutions will pursue appropriate legal remedies for the theft of our intellectual property. Law enforcement will investigate potential criminal violations of corporate espionage statutes, and the individuals responsible will face the professional consequences of their choices." I gathered my materials and headed toward the exit, but one more question stopped me at the door. "Mr. Cross, do you have any final statement about today's events?" I turned back to face the room full of cameras, reporters, and industry professionals who would carry this story throughout the technology sector. Ms. Thompson once described me as a placeholder in her personal life while she figured out what she actually wanted, I said, looking directly at her for the final time. Today, I returned the favor by showing everyone what she's actually worth as a professional colleague. I walked through the crowd toward the exit, past security guards and shocked investors and frantically scribbling reporters. "Ethan!" Lydia's voice called out desperately from somewhere behind me. "Please wait!" I stopped at the convention center's glass doors and turned back one last time. "You taught me something important, Lydia," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the lobby. "You showed me exactly how little I meant to you when you thought no one was watching." The reporters had followed us into the lobby, cameras still rolling, capturing every word for the industry blogs and social media accounts that would spread this story across the technology world within hours. So, I decided to show everyone exactly how much you're worth when people are paying attention. I pushed through the glass doors into the bright November morning, leaving behind the chaos of collapsed careers and exposed deceptions. The difference is, I called back without turning around, I used evidence and facts instead of lies and theft. I let your own actions tell the story instead of building success on someone else's work. My phone was already buzzing with calls from potential clients who'd watched the live stream of the presentation. Apparently, publicly exposing corporate espionage was excellent marketing for a data recovery business. I drove back to my office through the coastal city streets, past the harbor where fishing boats were returning with their morning catches, past the coffee shop where I'd first met Lydia 3 years ago, past the apartment building where I'd planned to propose to a woman who saw me as temporary training wheels. At my desk, I opened a beer and started planning my actual future. No placeholders, no compromises, no illusions about relationships that existed only in my imagination. Just me, building something that belonged entirely to myself. 6 months later, Clearview Solutions launched the real Mobile Recover Pro to universal industry acclaim. Cole Morrison faced federal charges for corporate espionage and a very expensive divorce when his wife discovered his affair through the media coverage. Pinnacle Creative Solutions filed for bankruptcy after losing their remaining clients and facing multiple lawsuits. And Lydia Thompson learned that when you treat people like temporary placeholders, eventually they get replaced by something better. She'd called me boring, predictable, and safe. A placeholder boyfriend with no ambition or fire. She was wrong about the ambition. She was wrong about the fire. She was only right about one thing. I was exactly the placeholder she deserved.